Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I want to come at you with some more good news. Another victory in the courts for the Second Amendment in this country. One that I hope is just another of many to come in the near future. Now, this decision was in the Fourth Circuit. Now, I do believe that is the hillbilly circuit. I think that covers like West Virginia, Virginia, maybe Maryland, and the Carolinas. So this decision today affects those states. I would love to see it go further because you know this is going to be appealed. I'm not going to say right now that this is the end-all be-all of this decision. You know it's going to be appealed, and I would love to see this go to the Supreme Court. But the decision today was that 18 to 20-year-olds cannot be banned from buying firearms from an FFL. That the federal law, that 1968 law that says they can't buy from a licensed dealer is unconstitutional. Now, since this is a court case, I'm going to read some stuff here because I don't want to misrepresent it. So pardon me while I read off of a piece of paper. But the court today said, this is part of the things they said, and I'm quoting this. And by the way, this case was brought by a Natalia Marshall, no relation, who was an 18-year-old female, a young, I want to say young girl, because to me she is a young girl, but young woman, let's say, young lady, assuming that's how she identifies. But she's female, let's just say that. That part doesn't change. But she wanted to buy a gun to defend herself from a crazy ex-boyfriend and for protection in the rural area she worked, where she worked with horses, women and horses. I don't remember what that is, but they love them. She was told, you can't buy one because you're 18. So she sued, and she has been victorious. And like I said, I want to read here what the court said. And I'll also read the dissent in a few moments and show you how pathetic the dissent is. But this is what the court found. They say, we first find that 18-year-olds possess the Second Amendment rights. Judge Julius Richardson wrote. Duh. Also, they said, they enjoy most every other constitutional right, and they were required at the time of the founding to serve in the militia and furnish their own weapons. And let's not forget that 18 to 20-year-olds probably make up most of the military, too, especially most of the fighting forces in the military. So let's not forget that. So that's not just a Civil War or a Revolutionary War thing. That's still true to today, although they don't provide their own weapons today. Biggest difference. The majority said Congress used misleading data to, I know it's data, but I prefer data from the Star Trek show, to justify passing the law in 1968. Surprise, surprise. Politicians lied to get a law passed to serve a very small few people. They then go on to say, Congress may not restrict the rights of an entire group of law-abiding adults because a minuscule portion of that group commits a disproportionate amount of gun violence, which is what they did. Because gang members commit a lot of violence, they just demonized all 18 to 20-year-olds, took their rights away from them. And everyone knows I'm not the biggest fan of saying people are adults at 18 years old period. I would much rather see you can't join the military till you're 21. You can't vote till you're 21. I'm more for that kind of things than it going the other way. But here's the thing. If you're going to make 18 the age where you can serve in the military and you can vote, well, then you can also drink. You can also rent a car. You should be, well, I don't know, renting a car, that's a private industry thing, so let's just not say that. But you should definitely be able to buy a gun from, I try to think things through before I say them, but sometimes that doesn't work. But you should definitely be able to buy a gun. That's basically what they were saying. If they're 18 years old, they have their constitutional rights, and the government doesn't get to say they don't, that they greatly overstepped. And that you can't demonize an entire group of people based on the action of those few that are in gangs. Can you imagine if the government tried to use that same reasoning that they used for banning 18 to 20-year-olds, saying they're just not mature enough and they commit too much crime? A lot of the gun crime committed is committed by 18 to 20-year-olds. Could you imagine if they tried to use that same reasoning for black people? Well, black people can't own guns because such a high percentage of violent crimes committed by a small percentage of the population. If someone tried to use that argument, the same one they use against 18, 20-year-olds, they would not only be shouted down by everyone around them, they'd probably be hung in the town square. and rightfully so. So it's kind of funny that that's the kind of reasoning that the government uses, but you would never apply that to anything else. And of course, they want to keep their cannon fodder at 18, and they want to keep their uninformed voters at 18. Some people have even suggested lowering that to 16, which is ridiculous. But basically, they just said they have rights. And we can't just decide arbitrarily that they don't in some aspects of their lives, but require them to bear the burden in others, like they do in the military. Because I say 18 to 21-year-olds bear the burden in the military. So that was a great decision. Now, this was a 2-1 decision by the circuit court. It will be appealed. But, this is actually more important than some other cases, like where that one judge says Smith & Wesson can be sued because ARs are known to be able to be made automatic. That's just one judge at a lower level just giving his opinion. This is actually a 3-panel judge where 2 judges agreed. So this does, weigh pretty heavily in our favor. It looks pretty good in our favor. So, but like I said, there was dissent. And I want to read the dissent right here. Judge James A. Wynn Jr., not the one who wasn't it Herman Munster? And I have seen him play a judge on lots of things. Said, the ruling invalidated a modest and long-established effort to control gun violence. Modest, you're denying 18 to 20-year-olds, 18 through 20-year-olds, their constitutional right, and you call that modest? Effort to control gun violence. The majority's decision to grant the gun lobby a victory. Why do you care who it is that wins? It should be based on the merits of the case, not who the victory is for. So that right there shows a bias in his favor. Let's see. The decision to grant the gun lobby a victory in a fight it lost on Capitol Hill more than 50 years ago is not compelled by law, nor is it consistent with the proper role of the federal judiciary in a democratic system. The Fifth Circuit, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals based in New Orleans upheld the handgun restriction against a similar challenge in 2012, finding that it was consistent with a long-standing tradition of targeting select groups' ability to access and to use firearms for the sake of public safety. So basically, that first guy is saying, this is wrong because we're giving the gun rights groups victory. So he's showing his bias there. And 2, he's saying, we shouldn't have done this because this ain't what we've done before. Yeah, politicians got away with something, so once they got away with it, it should stay that way forever. That's basically what he's saying. And that other part of the dissent there, this part, it is consistent with a long-standing tradition of targeting select groups, the select groups' ability to access and to use arms for the sake of public safety. That goes back to the what if we said this about blacks or Hispanics or Asian teenagers who are in gangs, Asian people. Would never stand. Why is it able to stand just based on age? If you're going to say you're an adult at 18, you're an adult, period. You don't get to say you're an adult. You can die for your country, but you can't do this. And you can vote, but you can't do this. You set one arbitrary age and you stick to it. Now, do I think it needs to be updated from the 1920s, especially from the 1700s? Of course. I think we know now most children are not developed that young. You don't really develop fully till your mid-20s usually. So 21's a much better standard in my opinion. But right now, as long as it's 18 for the military and everything else, it should be that way. But I just wanted to point out that right now, there has been a victory. Like I said, in the Fourth Circuit, as far as they're concerned right now, 18 to 20-year-olds can buy a gun from an FFL, as they should be able to. And this whole argument that they've brought up against it, their whole reason for dissent that, the politicians already got rid of it, so what we have to keep doing what we were doing. If we let them get away with it once, we got to let them get away with it now. And that it's okay to discriminate against certain groups. As long as it's for public safety, you can determine that certain groups don't get their rights. Well, that's pretty abhorrent, and I can't understand how anybody on the left would accept that dissent. Because that right there is racist, ageist. It's class warfare. It's everything that they're supposedly standing against, so I don't see how they can tolerate it. But like I say, it's a victory for now. It will be appealed, so we'll follow this and see where it goes. But it looks like logic is on our side in this one, and that seems to be bearing itself out in the courts. All right, everybody, now I want to move on to my favorite part of the show, gun talk. And today I want to talk about a special Glock that's been made by a custom maker. I'm not going to say their name because I don't know. It'll probably be on the picture. But they have designed a Glock that looks like it's made out of Legos. And people have asked me, should this be allowed? Should people be doing this? Should this company do this? Is this responsible? Is this something they should get in trouble for? Well, there's yeses and nos in there to all those different questions because they're basically different questions. Is it responsible? No, not at all. We already have enough problem with police officers saying, well, we just shoot anybody that's got something in their hands nowadays because there's guns that look like cell phones, there's guns that look like toys, blah, blah, blah. It's just another excuse to give cops reason to shoot. You know, like, oh, how did I know that was a toy gun in his hand? Well, maybe because he was 8 and he was on a playground. That might have been a good indicator for you. And I'm not saying that facetiously. That actually is something that happened. So, is it right? I don't think it's right. No. Is it responsible? No, I don't think it's responsible. Period. Should it be illegal? Definitely not. Because here's the thing. You can sit here and say, oh, this gun might get people shot, or it makes police not know if you got a real gun or a toy gun, and there's all kinds of problems that could stem from something like this. But that's the thing. They could. It's hypothetical. I don't believe in solving problems that aren't really problems yet. I mean, I'm okay with prevention. I'm okay with, keep a fire extinguisher in your house, wear your seatbelt, all this other stuff. Maintain your home so that the roof doesn't fall off of it. That's okay. But not at the sake of denying people rights or reducing freedom. No, not at that rate. Not when those are the stakes or the cost. Because it should be legal for them to make this. And then if there becomes a problem, like someone starts using these for crimes, well, then deal with the people that committed the crime. But you don't take the right away of someone to make what they want, do what they want, even if it is irresponsible. They should be allowed to do it. Now, there's a big difference between being able to do something and should you do something. If you can doesn't mean you should. That's where good judgment comes into play. But not everybody has good judgment. They're going to make stupid decisions, and that's their right. There's no requirement in this country to be smart. If you really don't like it, don't buy it. If enough people have an uproar and complain and bitch at them, and the guns don't sell, they'll quit making them. If you make a big deal out of it, and because of that draws the attention to the gun, and people buy them, well, then they'll sell more. They'll keep making them. And they should be allowed to, like I said. Even though I think it's a bad idea. I think it's irresponsible. I think it could possibly lead to bad things. Lots of things can lead to bad things, but if they do, you deal with the bad thing. Like, you don't tell people you can't have guns because you might murder someone. If somebody murders someone, you deal with that. You hold them responsible. So in the case of this gun, for one, it's ugly, but it's almost cool. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not a little bit interested because it is kind of cool looking. But like I say, it's something that shouldn't have been done. But it's something that I support fully, the right of the people who made it to actually do it. All right, everybody, I want to end the show today with our pet rescue of the day. And today we have Ruger, and he's coming to us from Vincent D., who I'm sure likes to be called Vin D. Who wouldn't be if that was your name? To not want to be called Vin D would be kind of crazy, if you ask me. You'd have to be a nut job. And speaking of nut jobs, apparently, this is one of those cases where it's less of a person rescuing a dog and a dog actually rescuing a person. Because Vincent had a lot of problems. He came out of the military, didn't have a supportive family, had some mental health issues after he got home, went to therapy. Therapy ran out because they don't really do a good job of taking care of our veterans. And his doctor, since he didn't want to take meds, suggested he get a dog. Well, he got that dog, and that dog started meaning everything to him. He realized that dog trusted him and loved him unconditionally, and he had never felt that before in his life. So he said lots of times when things were dark, and I understand exactly what he's saying here, the only thing that kept him going was thinking to himself, well, if I did something to myself, what's Ruger going to do? He's trapped here in the apartment with me. He's going to starve to death. Or worse yet, he's going to be adopted by someone, or taken by someone to the pound, and a dog fighter is going to take him because he's a pit bull mix. So the idea that I have to be here for Ruger is what kept him going through some dark times. And that kind of love and that kind of dedication is what comes when you actually, for the first time in your life, feel, love unconditionally. When you feel something loves you for you. And that's what you get from dogs. A lot of people here adopt cats, but they aren't looking for that, I guess, because cats, their love's very conditional, by the way. But like I said, this is one of those cases where the dog rescues the person doesn't rescue the dog, and it's a perfect example of how that's true. One of the best treatments for some mental illnesses, depression, especially people who question whether they're worth anything, animals are great therapy for that. Cats, dogs, anything that'll show you love, especially dogs. So, like I said, this is one case where I think Ruger did as much for Vin D as Vin D did for Ruger. So I want to congratulate both of you on finding a very important person in your life, or dog in your life. And I want to congratulate both of you on experiencing love and care, maybe for the first times in both of your lives. So congratulations to both Ruger and Vin D for finding each other. All right, everybody, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you come back again tomorrow. Until then, I want to sign off as usual by saying, as far as the state of the world today is concerned, it is what it is. It could be a lot worse, but it could still be better. And what I think it will be in the very near future, especially if we start ignoring the profiteers, the fearmongers, the people that want to manipulate the gun community for their own financial interest and don't really give two shits about our rights. If we keep ignoring those people, or at least start ignoring those people, and fight smart and hard for our rights in this country in an intelligent, thoughtful manner, what things will be in the very near future for people who love the Second Amendment and freedom in general is better.